All right, welcome everyone to our July 2022 update. Of course, across our Smarter SMSF platform, there are a substantial number of changes that have to happen as of the 1st of July each year. But also there are numerous additions, updates, and other things that happen across the platform, across our documents, forms, our training platform, all throughout the calendar year or financial year, whichever way you want to look at it. We do ordinarily provide to our members and through our newsletters some updates to let people know about what is new, what fixes, bugs, patches, all those things that we have done. But again, we understand how busy people are and how things can get lost inside of inboxes. So what we wanted to do, and we were quite successful in the feedback that we got from this webinar that we did last year with our July 2021 update, was to just use 30 to 45 minutes here to help set you up to understand what we are doing within our platform, what we have done, and things that you'll be able to take away and hopefully be able to use yourself, either as a member or whether you are accessing our documents and training on a pay-as-you-go basis. So this is definitely not a technical webinar. We'll talk about some of these things in the context of their technical application and why we have done certain things, but we will go backwards and forwards between these slides and the platform and our knowledge base to show you just what we actually have put in play. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, I want to go through and demonstrate to you and explain a little bit about the enhancements that we've done so far and the enhancements that are still ongoing in some of these areas, and what you could look forward to that may, again, help you and the rest of your team through the use of documents and training via Smarter SMSF. We have had a broad range of document updates, in particular, those that have changed on the 1st of July 2022. So I just want to go through and help you to understand what changes have been made and where and why those are important. Again, gives you an opportunity here to ask any specific questions that might be from that may be relevant to you and your clients. Happy to take those on board as we go. I also want to spend a little bit of time about what is in our pipeline from a document perspective, not only from a roadmap in terms of new documents and updates to some existing ones, but what we're also doing is, across some feedback, is doing what I'd call some document combos or some consolidation of documents whereby we can kill two birds with one stone through the ordering process. And then from there, we will kind of move out of our documents area and give you an update on some of the changes that we have made in our SMSF Foundations course, most importantly, reflecting, again, the changes that we have seen from the 1st of July 2022. And like I said, if there are any other questions and so forth that you have, be certainly happy to take those on board as well. So let's get stuck into the platform enhancements first. So it has been a fairly busy period over the past 3 to 6 months or more. And we have continued to make changes. Some of these you actually aren't seeing on the front end, but quite substantial in what we've been doing to improve the visibility of some of the subscription information that you have, but also just, again, some feedback issues that on face value don't look significant, but from the way in which you may be ordering now do make a significant change. And one of those in recent times has been a change to the approach that we've done with our company order forms. So what we have done, and some people didn't even realize that we actually had ASIC validation sitting inside of our company orders previously. So I'm going to flick across now into our documents platform here. And what you will see in here, previously we had a little pop-up that would allow you to do that company order validation. Now, what we have decided to do is now bring that front and center to, in essence, enforce that validation first. because what we did see is that people would go through and actually fill out all the names and stuff and not do that checks and balance themselves. And off the back of that, what then transpired was a rejection of that order. Maybe it was an invalid name, maybe it was a name that had already existed and so forth. And therefore, you weren't able to, or we needed to make amendments and weren't able to proceed unless that change was made. So now what we can obviously do in here is include that information in here. So I'm just going to use the word Bradman here because we know that that is something that ordinarily can't be done, around how that would work. And then you would go through that particular process. So, so these are things that you can now, in essence, work through and confirm in here through this ordering process. So whether that's, like I said, Smith Super, it will give you validations as to whether it is available or not available. Again, you can change the information that you can see on here. So you'll get that unavailable. We do have different combinations here in terms of it being rejected. Sometimes it may be available, but will be subject to review. So initially we had rejected those, but what we have now done is we've allowed that to go through. ASIC may still decide to reject that, but then you would work with us to get that information there. Of course, remember, we do have this pop-up at the moment every time you do an order, just reaffirming that requirement around the director IDs. We're still doing a little bit of work on that ourselves, most importantly because we do have an integration with InfoTrack around the incorporation side. We are changing some of the back-end work on that to enable us to do more of the document generation stuff and incorporate the director ID information into the forms here that will then also enable you to populate that information, not only automatically into the documents, but also automatically through the push to CAS 360 as well. So again, a couple of things that we've done there on the company front, and we'll continue to do some work over the next few months, again, as we look at and update some of these requirements around director IDs. And again, we're just using those pop-ups at the moment to make you aware of those particular issues. All right, so let's go back to our slides again here and just go through some of the other areas. The other thing that we have done, for those of you that have subscriptions, would be aware that you have a subscription counter. So what we have been doing through this process is initially attaching that subscription to the primary individual. One of the things that we've got from a feedback point of view is that what would occur in an organization if we have more than one primary. So one of the things that we have also now done is we have migrated that back to the entity level, and then allowing for individuals to attach themselves as either primary or admin, and then adding staff to that. Now, that primary secondary user functionality is something that we are still doing a lot of work with at the moment, but we have made some fairly significant inroads so far. And what I mean by that is as you can see on the screen, we already have the ability for that primary account holder in that organization, so arguably the one that has a subscription or the one that has been allocated to the manager role or partner role, whatever it is that can view, they now have visibility through their My Account section to be able to see all saved orders and all completed orders of that subscription that relates to the organization. So what you can see here, in this instance, I've got David, who works with me in our sales and development manager role. He is the parent in this instance, and then I am the child account here. But what this will enable him to do is to be able to see all of the orders that relate to me, and in not only in a saved order sense, but see all of the completed orders of the parent, being him, and then the children in this account, all the staff in essence that had been assigned the ability to do so. So we have a range of members who either in a saved order sense have maybe administration staff that might do some of the initial legwork in terms of getting the information ready for that document order to be generated, and it will get to a saved order section, or saved order stage, I should probably say, in respect to the completion of that order. And then the manager here would then pick up that work, review it, and then naturally submit it. So this mechanism here now allows for that process to occur, where you have different logins of different staff members in the organization. So that is one thing through the counter, through the subscriptions that we have. Each individual that is a part of that organization that you want to provide access to would be logging into the platform with their own detail. This is needed, of course, through what we have with Simple Fund 360, that document ordering process through there, where again, individuals log in through their own individual credentials, email address, and so forth. So that now has been applied across our entire platform. And again, we have the company linked here. If it is a BGL account, we can also attach it by the short firm code. Or alternatively, where that individual might not be, admin person might not be doing that work themselves, but it may be a staff member, and that staff member will go through to completion and actually complete that work. The manager here will have full visibility over all of the orders. So we've had examples in recent times, in particular through COVID. Joe Bloggs is looking for a document. Jane Citizen was the staff member in there, and she created it. She's done it under her own login. So the only way that manager was going to be able to get access to it, if it hadn't already been downloaded off the platform already, was to get in contact with us and ask for us to obviously provide that to them. So this now gives that primary account holder here access and full visibility over all of the orders that are attached to the subscription of that company. So it's taken a lot of work for us to get to this stage, but importantly, the feedback that we've had so far is that it is advantageous, in particular for firms that have multiple staff members accessing that subscription. Now, what else are we going to put on here? Quite clearly, there are going to be additions that we will include in this process. One of the other areas in here is going to be around access for different staff members. So that primary or parent that we can see here is also going to be able to see the list of staff members that do have access. It'll be able to control the permissions of those staff members, and it will allow that primary individual to add those staff members via email. So there will be an addition to them, and they will get a confirmation email as if they would have enrolled on a basis as a member on a PAYG basis through us, and they will be able to be removed or restricted as well. So that's kind of the next phase that you will see here. But again, some significant work has been done in the background on this, and we're pretty pleased with the feedback so far. So if you have this from a subscription point of view and would like to get access to this, if you haven't already, please get in contact with us. You can contact David or email us at team@smartersmsf.com, and be more than happy to get that set up for you and make the most of it, most importantly. All right. So one of the things that we will always do when we do go through and provide these updates is we in our monthly newsletter. So if we do have any bugs or changes and that sort of thing that would occur, we are letting you know through those regular newsletters of fixes, updates, and new items that come along. One of the other things that we have done with the amount of changes that have occurred is we did send out an update on the 1st of July. So again, we do have that information in our knowledge base here. So in here, you can see if I just type in our 1 July 2022, and you'll be able to see in here the update. And we have a full explanation of what has changed as of the 1st of July 2022. So we'll go through naturally some of this in the document stuff shortly, but you'll always get a there'll be information readily available to you to understand what has actually changed. Now, importantly here, when we look at things like the changes that have been applied here, we also may be then linking it back to other resources that we have naturally provided as well. So one of the things that we did previously, as these law measures from the 1st of July 2022 took effect, we then provided some lengthy instruction to our members about why certain changes would need to occur or wouldn't need to occur. And again, helping you to understand why decisions are or aren't being made and what impact that has on the deeds that your clients are using, and therefore whether any further updates would be required or not. So let's move back again. So I am kind of going backwards and forwards in this, but that's really the idea of today, to share with you as much information as possible about where these changes are. So I strongly suggest, when you see the newsletters, you're wanting to find out, maybe there has been something that you've been looking for, or some communication from us around an update, a change, and so forth. You can go into these updates or these change logs via our knowledge base and get that information there and see whether that update has actually included any of that information. So in terms of what's ahead, like I said before, this primary, secondary user functionality will continue to expand. We've kind of only rolled out that saved and completed orders in the last 6 or 7 weeks. But again, that feedback initially has been quite positive. As I said before, the next step of that is to be doing a bit more around the user interface, and in particular, adding the ability for that primary individual to add and remove staff from the subscription counter, and setting some permissions around that as well. I also touched on the fact that we will be doing some work around the director ID requirements, including incorporating that into the Push to Code 360, and also the director ID into Simple Fund 360, where that gets captured, and also into Class. We are shortly going to be commencing work on a Supermate integration. So in the same vein in which you can use Class and Simple Fund 360 integration to import your fund data, member, trustee information to generate documents. You will shortly be able to do that. So for those of you that are Supermate users, if you do have any recommendations on documents that we should be focusing on first, please, again, feel free to send us an email with the suggested documents that you'd like us to focus on. We've kind of got our own brief. We've spoken to a couple of our members that are Supermate users and got some guidance from them, but others, please feel free to do so. One of the other areas, it has been on our radar for some time. We are working through it, but slowly, unfortunately, at the moment, the ABN TFN work with the SBR2 requirements. We are currently working through that as a project. So we don't have a fixed date yet. We'd like to think that we could get that completed in this quarter, but we will just wait and see at this point in time. We're also doing some work specifically on what I'm calling our deed platform. It has evolved. We were looking to roll it out entirely as an automated deed service, but now we are expanding that again across from some initial feedback with clients to not only include it to automate the updates of SMSF deeds. We will be able to manage things like constitutions and other documents as well. So our first release, what is going to be a re-release in beta shortly, will allow for the management and the storing of deeds on there to be able to ensure that you've got that full trail of documents. Yes, you will be able to go through the process of automation of deeds, which will be available through a subscription process. But we are also going to be using that deed platform for the purposes of a bulk upgrade service as well. So one-off type arrangements whereby you'll be able to upload those deeds into the system to allow for review to occur on our end as well. And then again, it would be starting to catalog and categorize those deeds on there, should you choose to remain to keep that on there, or whether you decide then simply just to get that updated deed, and then you can naturally clear off that information from the stored file that we have there. We also, again, beyond that platform, there are a range of tasks that we're working on. A white label document portal for certain providers will be relevant. So again, fair bit of work on that. But by and large, this next 6 months for us will be around some, what I'd call some 1%ers. We want to ensure that we, some projects that have been sort of floating around for some time, we can actually bring those to fruition. The deed platform is a good example, the integration with Supermate and so forth, the functionality, the primary, secondary stuff. And the last one is kind of moving all of our order forms and document generation process into our, I guess, version 2 platform. And so there is going to be a fairly significant shift to that. Some of our forms are now 5 and 6 years of age. So we are going to, as we migrate that across, go through and do some updates into the forms themselves, and then also into the document templates that sit behind it. But naturally, all these things, as we add new documents in and so forth, will continue to expand and increase the number that we do have available in Simple Fund 362. We do see a substantial number of those orders come through that direct integration that we have in Simple Fund 360. We don't currently have all of our available documents that we do on Smarter SMSF's platform that we do in there. So again, our one of our core jobs in this next 6 months in particular is to try and get some equalization in terms of the number that we have in there, so that people don't have to go between the different platforms to do so. So on that front, from a document point of view, there have been a range of changes. So most importantly, as I was talking about before, we didn't necessarily see significant changes into the deed at the 1st of July 2022. I spoke about before that member communication that we had in respect to why the what impact the legislative changes from the 2021-2022 budget were going to have. And in many instances, we didn't actually need to see any substantive change to the deed. We did, however, need to make some adjustments to the guides in there, because quite clearly the guides, even though they're not binding in terms of their operation in the deed, they are there as an instructional purpose to help explain and interpret what the rule of that fund actually means. So a really good example there in Rule 6 around the authorised contribution framework is, of course, the fact that a trustee can accept a voluntary contribution now for any individual up to 75 years of age, based upon, or no longer requiring them, I should say, on the meeting the work test. So the acceptance rules have changed quite substantially as a result of that, and therefore we didn't need to necessarily reflect a rule change based upon how we have drafted that rule itself, but the guide actually did need the change. So that did get reflected across our new super fund order documents, our trust deed upgrade, our CureOps deed, and our loss deed. And then naturally we saw all of our product disclosure statements needing to be updated from the 1st of July 2022. So all that stuff was ready to go on the morning where we saw order forms coming through from 8 a.m. on the 1st of July, setting up brand new funds. The other thing just worth noting that we've done in recent times is off the back of some recent updates that we've done with our deed upgrades for the 1st of July, we have streamlined back. We did have 3 different templates sitting behind our deed upgrades. One was where there was no amendments. 2 was where there was up to 2 or 3 amendments. And then we had a scheduled deed. So that kind of middle one there was arguably had a bit of middle child syndrome and didn't quite fit in, it felt like. So what we've now done is, in essence, we've moved out that in its entirety, And what we now have with our deed upgrades is simply, has the upgrade occurred or not in the past? If it's yes, then you would naturally put the dates in, but it is going to produce what I call a schedule deed. Schedule deed meaning all of the updates that have occurred will form part of a schedule at the end of that document, rather than being within the recitals themselves. Okay, so some of you may not notice that difference. Some of you may have. It only did change in the past sort of month or so. But again, just to let you know that that has actually occurred. The other thing that we've done, we did this with our new SMSF document some time ago. We had requests from people to provide pre-filled blank templates for the death benefit nomination and binding death benefit nomination. So we have now added those into the trust deed upgrade as well. Still, quite often we get a lot of people saying, how do I change the fact that there's a sample written over the Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 DBN templates? They are in there for a very specific reason, and we only need to look at the decision recently of Hill versus Zuda. Many of you may have been on that webinar that I ran with Chris Hill recently, and it talked about the fact that CISREG 6.17a does not apply to SMSFs. So the way in which we address that issue, and have for a long period of time, is that any death benefit nomination inside our deed must follow the terms that are prescribed either in Schedule 1 or Schedule 2. So that is why they sit there like that. But what we have now done beyond that document that is generated is that we also, as I said, produce a binding death benefit nomination, blank to be completed, but it will fill in the names of the individuals for a standard and a binding nomination. So you could then, we incorporate that so you can send to clients as part of that signing process. We have also now got on our site a fairly comprehensive change of trustee document. It covers additions to trustees, removal of individual trustees, additions and removals of individual trustees, individuals to corporate, corporate to corporate, and corporate to individuals. Now, what is important to remember from this is that change of trustee form is distinctly different from a change of trustee form that we have with the death of a member. And as I will explain shortly, we are currently working on a change of trustee deed as well that will deal with enduring powers of attorney. So looking at issues of incapacity, looking at issues of residency, where we have someone that is under a legal disability or not allowed to hold that position by virtue of them being absent. So in those scenarios, we then will have an additional change of trustee document. So that the change of trustee I'm talking about here is what I would call our vanilla changes of trustee. And then we have our more bespoke arrangements for change of trustees, where we need to continue to meet the definition of Section 17A, but it may be as a result of incapacity, death of a member, or something where we have that 17A3 requirement around the representative coming in to step into the shoes of that individual. Now, the other thing that we have also recently added is the choice method that we now have available in the 2021-2022 SMSF annual return, where if we have both segregated and unsegregated pension assets, and there is a choice made to use the unsegregated method for the entire year, there is no formal election required, but there does need to be a decision and some records of that decision made. So what we have done is we have produced a choice minute in that regard. So if you have clients in that circumstance, I would suggest you understand what that does and produce that minute and hold that on record for the purposes of the tax return and the audit. Also, document-wise, we've made changes to reflect the downsizer rules now have moved from an individual age 65 down to 60. We have also updated in our pension documents, well, not just the documents, in the form itself, the fact that the 50% temporary minimum has been extended through to 30 June 2023. So the calculation in there will be based upon that reduced amount. both in the commencement documents, in the annual pension review documents, and the lost pension deed documents. What else we've been working on over the past sort of 4 or 5 months? We have rolled out a specific CUROPS deed. We do actually have the special rule resolutions. That's what we did have initially, but we now do have an actual deed there itself. When you set up a brand new fund, that CUROPS deed, as I mentioned, not only was established some time ago, but has also then been updated to reflect the 1 July 2022 changes, PDSs and so forth as well. We are still working on the upgrade that is in progress at the moment. We do have templates available for that. So if someone does need to do a CUROPS upgrade, we can obviously assist in that particular process. We also created a property declaration minute. We are seeing more and more auditors ask for evidence around the fact that the property is either a residential property that may not have and shouldn't have any personal use in respect to it, or if it is business real property, that it naturally meets those conditions. And then, of course, evidence to support the market valuation that has been provided as well. So we've combined those two things together in that ordering process. And I'll talk shortly about some further work that we're doing in that on our platform at the moment, to be shortly added into Simple Fund 360 to be able to utilize as well. We had a number of feedback items through our add and remove member. It was working in some areas and problematic in others. So I just wanted to make people know, let people know that we have now gone through with a fine-tooth comb, and we hope that we've now fixed a lot of those bugs. It is a document that gets used quite extensively. And therefore, we did want to ensure that that was all done and dusted and now working properly. So hopefully you'll see that reflected as we go forward now. And the rollovers in and out. We will see auditors, again, a heightened expectation on compliance with SuperStream and how that needs to be demonstrated. So again, what we've done here is produced a range of trustee minutes. The rollovers in are much simpler in the evidence that is required. Rollovers out have a lot more in the procedures that we need to adhere to qualify for SuperStream. So again, we've built that document as the body of evidence to support that we have naturally complied as well. So I might just go and quickly on the topic of documents, just go back and show you some of those specific changes that we have made to the deed. So you can see in here, we've got our ability just to search. So I'm going to go and go to that change log for the deed rules. And you'll see here, not only are we covering what has been done recently, but you will always get a trail of what we have done in the past. Okay, so it's important that you can kind of go, okay, well, what version do we have here? And you'll see the version reference here. And then you'll be able to track that to see what has actually happened over that point in time. So you can see here, all of the work that we've really had to do has just sat around the various guides that sit in the document rather than the deed itself. So one of the questions that we do get asked is well, do the 1 July 2022 changes mean that I need to get my deed updated? No, if you are a Smarter SMSF deed user at the moment, you would not need to update that because we didn't have prescriptive information in the rules around those age requirements. And again, this is the difference in depth of knowledge versus breadth of knowledge, and the fact that some deed providers will kind of just replicate what the rules are saying without understanding how you might be able to work around these things and how, but still have the applicable rules apply to that scenario without having to kind of jump through a hoop of an update each and every year because the needle keeps moving. So we use the concept of an authorized contribution, a contribution that is authorized to be accepted under the superannuation laws. So therefore, again, we can kind of move with the times unless there is some substantive change in the law that would require us to look at that definition in its own right. Okay, so let's keep moving on. And the next thing I wanted to talk about here was this concept of some document combinations. So again, we're getting some feedback from people about saying, it'd be great if we could, and it'd be great, not only can we use integrations that save us time, but it'd be great if we could kind of combine some of these orders together. Now, the natural one initially here is our SMSF, new SMSF and special purpose company. We are already now in alpha testing. For those that don't know what alpha testing is, it's basically we're testing internally with us at the moment. So with in a sandbox environment with the ASIC integration and then the data populating through. So we will shortly be moving that to beta testing, meaning we'll provide a select number of our members with the ability to work through that document themselves and give us feedback, and then it will move into live production itself. So that is recognized as our top priority in that area. The other one that we will look to combine is our trust deed and constitution upgrade. So again, if you have and you are not using the Smarter SMSF deed and you want to bring it into alignment with our Smarter SMSF documents, what we do generally recommend is that you are lining up the deed with the constitution so that you have rules that actually line up between those two things as well. So we see clearly an opportunity to bring those two together. Pension rollbacks and commencements, same issue here. Again, we're seeing people go through and do various strategies, including recontributions and things, and therefore ensuring that we can save some time through that process from a commutation point of view, and then rewrapping that up with a commencement document. Companies and LRBAs is the other one, change of trustees and deed upgrades as well. So there's a broad range of documents that we've identified and we can see here that we can spend time on. Some of them will take a hell of a lot longer than others. Just note that. But again, these are some of the ones that we're working on. And again, if you've got any suggestions for combinations and so forth, please feel free to get in contact with us and we'd be happy to sort of scope that out and work out when we may actually do that. We have a range of documents that we are looking to add on. A lot of these, which has been fantastic, and I always say to our members to ensure that you give us the feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. Feedback to us is hugely valuable because it doesn't allow us to evolve in what we're doing. So one of the things that we've got from some new members that have come on is the way in which we've constructed our pension documents. Technically brilliant in terms of what it achieves, but also we had an issue recently where we use an oral request function. We had a potential problem. We've been able to overcome it, but in essence, where between the time that the oral request was made and in essence the date in which the documents were to commence, that member had passed away, or it could also apply in an incapacity sense. So what we are currently working through is giving you some flexibility in how you want to go about that pension commencement approach. If you want to, simply use that oral request approach. Once you have the information readily available, then sure, you can continue to use that like hundreds of our members actually do. Alternatively, you can go through a two-step process whereby you could produce an initial written request. We know that that has an unknown initial value, and then through the completion of the financial statements, you'll then do a second stage and confirmation and kind of wrapping it up as you ordinarily would with that oral request process. Now, that is not only going to be applied in the commencement approach, but we'll then also look at that across a number of other written request options for rollbacks and for partial commutations as well. I touched on change of trustee, so that appointment of EPA here will be another thing that we'll be looking to do, whereby we'll have one party that will be removed as a result of, like I said, incapacity or whatever the case may be. We are also, I touched on earlier, we have released our property declaration and market valuation minute. The other thing that we will be incorporating into that document is the ability to do title searches. So using the API that we have with InfoTrack, you'll be able to not only obtain that declaration or fill in that declaration and generate that document, but you will be able to also, if it is required, a title search, you'll be able to, for a fee, naturally, you'll be able to then obtain that title fee, that title search, and that will be then sent through to you and generated in line with the declaration that naturally will be used for audit purposes. Recontributions, again, I see this as being a significant strategy going forward. So we're going to do a little bit of work around that to simplify the document trail process for money coming out and going back in as a strategy, whether it's from pension or accumulation phase, future service deductions, the above minimum pension election. There's some strategies in there that we're going to make some changes to that election form to give you some flexibility as to which one you want to take out first. Some of you that have been to our SMSF days so far would have heard me talk about that strategy and topic. And you can see there are a couple of final documents as well. We will now drive some pretty significant focus over this next 6 months and probably 12 months into growing our current stack of documents that's sitting around 70, up to 100 and even more. And the reason why I want to make that clear to you is that a recent webinar that we ran a poll in that webinar, and what was interesting out of it, we did ask the question about the practitioners' views on the need for documentation and whether that was growing in importance or not. And what was fascinating from that response is that the poll showed that 81% of respondents thought the need for SMSF documents was increasing or significantly increasing. Now, this isn't going to necessarily mean that our prices will be increasing in line with the fact that there is going to be a demand for more documentation to support the audit process and potential legal processes and stuff as well. So therefore, you need systems like we have built with the Smarter SMSF platform to be able to help facilitate that for you simply, efficiently, and effectively. And that is, in essence, what we are trying to achieve here for you. So therefore, the more templates that we can help to deliver this for you, the more efficient and effective that will be for you ultimately as well. So like I said, expect to see a range of these things go through. I touched on very earlier on about the fact that we are kind of migrating to our version 2 platform, and that is going to feature as part of this as we build the documents. You'll see them starting in version 2, and you may see you going backwards and forwards between those two platforms subject to the document that is available. It's all fine. It's all done through a single sign-on process. But again, I think this next 6 months, you'll begin to see some of those things come on board in terms of how you do it, but most importantly, allowing you to do these things more efficiently than you've ever done before. So let's now move on. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on was our SMSF Foundations course. So if we haven't been working busily enough on the platform itself, we have also been doing some work around our course content, because like we needed to do with many of the documents, the changes on the 1st of July 2022 meant that we did need to update modules to reflect those changes. And what you can see here is there was a couple of minor changes really into module 1. So for example, things like the SG increase, but module 3 has had a fairly substantial overhaul around the changes from the 1st of July, including the removal of the work test and the eligibility requirements to make contributions, how they interact with the bring forward rules and TSB inclusions, work test exemptions, the super rates and thresholds that have moved throughout that time, the voluntary contribution rules ordinarily and how they impact non-concessionals, and the various other types of contributions, downsizes, spouse contributions, and the like. There are still some further amendments to be made, some minor things inside the tax module. There's a couple of tweaks that will be made there over the course of the next month, and into the estate planning module, which will be naturally just talking and confirming some of those requirements that we saw around Hill and Zuda in particular. So again, we utilize our knowledge library, our knowledge base here, to share information with you. So you can either go and click on the category that you can see on the left-hand side here, and you'll have the change logs when we make particular changes. So again, you can see that information in here, and then you can see the various sections within the course that have now been updated and reflect what is the current law around those contribution measures. And as I mentioned before, when those changes have been made in Module 5 and Module 7, they are going to be naturally updated here as well. So for those of you that may be working through the course at the moment, if you are working through it, you may want to go back and kind of just do a bit of a refresher around Module 3 based upon those changes. Otherwise, this is why we say to you to contemplate, if you are doing the course, maybe think about our annual add-on update, because it will allow you to use what we have in the course as a resource for you and your business. And therefore, when these changes occur, or even when we may be adding in modules like we did in Module 7 in the first instance, you can go back and complete that in your own time as well. So again, there's a range of things in there that we have changed and will continue to change over the course of the next couple of months as well. All right, so I think that is just about it from me in that regard. So like I said, today was just about giving you some insights and ideas and around what we've been working on. What I did want to say here is we have been nominated in 2 categories. 2 of the categories, naturally, that we are talking to you about with our July update in the SMSF Advisor Awards. So we would love for you, if you utilize either of our CPD or documents on a pay-as-you-go basis or as a client subscriber, we would love for you just to spend a few minutes rating us highly in that there, as you should do for all of your service providers. And hopefully we get recognized, not just me, but most importantly, my team, for all the fantastic work that they do. And yeah, those 2 categories to us would mean the world, to be recognized in that way. So any help that you can get to support that would be fantastic. So that is it. Like I said, we do have a number of things coming up in terms of ongoing training. We are right in the midst of our SMSF Day events. We've run our Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane events. They have been fantastic to get out face-to-face with people again. We still do have Adelaide and Perth coming up. Perth is now sold out. We do still have some tickets available for Adelaide, but we have a range of updated sessions for you here from our product suite, but also with our CPD webinar events as well. So again, you can go on to our site, click on those and register or purchase. And if you've got any questions, you can get in contact with us at any point in time. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Like I said at the very beginning, this was about just giving you some insights and updates around what has been going on in our business to ultimately help you focus on what you do best. So thank you once again. If you've got any other questions, please feel free to ask those now, and I'll be happy to take those on board and try and answer them for you. Other than that, have a great rest of the day. Bye for now. So I think if there is no questions, which it looks like there isn't, we might leave it there. So thank you everyone again for being a part of today. And yeah, look forward to seeing you at one of our events in the near future. Bye for now.